First off today, I want to say, I hope I can make it through this video without my voice fading out too much. I have a head cold, and last night's Fuck the Super Bowl live chat kind of wore my voice out a bit, but I'll try to get through this video today without it fading in and out too much. Now today what I want to do a video about is different types of grip cuts for 1911. And I want to do this video because of a couple of different reasons. One, because I often get questions from people that are ordering 1911 grips after they've seen some I have, and they're like, well, there's all these different options for types of cuts. What do they mean? So I want to answer those people, and I got a very specific question about a pair of grips I put on my carry gun, which I'll address towards the end of this video. Now, the biggest difference between two types of 1911 grips is whether they're cut for a Magwell or whether they're standard cut. Now, a standard cut is easy to see because it has a beveled bottom. You see how that has a bevel on it? Magwell cuts are flat along the bottom. They just have a very flat bottom right here, just sits right up against a Magwell. This right here is a standard cut 1911 grip. Now this one is cut for the mainspring housing pin. That's not always the case. This one just happens to be. But as you can see, it goes down straight and then tapers off towards the bottom of the gun because there's no Magwell, so you would want the standard cut here. Here on the Kimber, I have a Magwell. So I have a Magwell cut. As you can see, there's no taper. It just comes down and meets up with the edges of the Magwell. So that's the Magwell cut right there. That's what you would need if you have this type of Magwell, with one exception, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes. One other different type of cut people ask me about quite often is an Ambi-Safety cut. Do they need one? Well, there's two different types of Ambi-Safeties on guns nowadays. There's the type that use a little wing that goes under the grip to hold it in place, and for those you have to have a cut for that. If you look at these Nighthawk grips right here, you will see that on the weak side, the Ambi side, there's a little cutout on the back of the grip. That just allows that little wing to go under there and it holds it in place, but still lets the grips go flush against the gun. That's an Ambi cut. So you only need that if your Ambi-Safety has that little wing. If it's one of the ones that uses the hammer pin like a SIG does to hold the Ambi-Safety in place, you do not need that cut. You can see here the Ambi-Safety on the Kimber does not use the wing, they use the hammer pin, so that cut is not needed for this Ambi-Safety. And that's really the only two things you really need to know about 1911 grips when you're ordering them, other than whether you have a commander size, a full size, or a compact. Now that might make you think there's three different sizes, but they're not, there's just two. This would be commander size and government size, full size and compact. They have the same size grip frame. So if you have either one of those, if you have a 4-inch barrel, 4¼ inch barrel, 5-inch barrel, you need the full size 1911 grips. If you have an officer's model, that's when you need the small grips. They're a little bit shorter, as you can see here. So that's the only time you need the smaller size, is if you have a subcompact or an officer size 1911. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there is one exception when you would not want a Magwell cut grip for a gun that has a Magwell. And that is if it has a thinner Magwell like the ones Nighthawk Custom uses. A lot of people noticed in a picture I did recently that I put standard cut grips on my EDC gun even though there's a Magwell, and there's a reason for that. On my EDC, I have the Nighthawk Custom Magwell. It does not stick out like the other Magwells do. It's not thick. It doesn't really go beyond the frame. So that tapers down perfectly to the Magwell. As you can see right here, it just tapers right down to it. That little ledge on the bottom of the grip is perfect to line up with that Magwell. If you look at it from the bottom, you just see the bottoms of the grips. You don't see the Magwell sticking out beyond them anywhere. Especially if you look at a downward angle, you don't see a big ledge here from the Magwell like you would with a standard size Magwell. Now you can put Magwell cut grips on with the Nighthawk Custom Magwell, but they will stick out a bit. As you can see right here, there's quite a bit of grip that just has a flat cut across it, sticking out over the Nighthawk Magwell. That's not a bad look. In fact, a lot of people like that. I just don't like that. I like having it tapered down. So that's why I went with the standard cut grips here from MD Grips. I got them on Etsy from MD Grips. That's why I went with them, because they taper down and flush with the Magwell perfectly. You don't see the grips sticking out and then a little flat shelf below the grip. Right here on my Dan Wesson, you can see if you put the standard cut grips on a gun with a standard Magwell, you'll have that big recess right there where it cuts down under, and you'll have a big ledge from your Magwell right here. This isn't the worst thing in the world, but it bothers me, so I don't like it. One last thing I will add is that there is a type of Magwell that actually hooks to the lower 2 grip screws on your gun. These require the grips to be cut for the little legs on that Magwell. My advice on these is don't use them. They're junk. So that's pretty much all you need to know when you're ordering 1911 grips, and it answers the question of why I went with the standard cut grips on my everyday carry gun. Pretty simple, just a couple of differences. Once you understand what they are, it's really easy to order the right grips for your gun.